Hi guys, welcome to Sew Shop Creates. Today I'm going to show you how to make this snow globe. Let me shake it up for you real quick. Okay, so this is part of the Gracefully Created and Sew Shop collab dropping on the 26th. I will link those details below. If you're watching this after the 26th of April, chances are the individuals are already listed on the website to buy. If you're watching this before the 26th, these drop April 26th at 10 a.m. CST, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, along with the rest of the bundle. So let's get started. All right, so let's get started. So I was originally going to use this decal, but I ended up not using it, so ignore that. This is the 15-ounce handled snow globe from Mother Tumbler. Of course, I am putting some painter's tape on the outside so I don't make a big mess. And I'm filling my tumbler with Bonfire by PDB Creative Studio. You want a chunky mix for snow globes. Too much fine glitter will clump, and I fill this up about a quarter of the way. I don't have a funnel, so it's a lot of tapping and pushing the glitter into the hole. It usually takes me about 5 full minutes to get it in there. Listen, I usually use a small paintbrush to push it in there, but I was out. I ran out of paintbrushes. I don't know what kind of crafter I am. After it's filled up about a quarter of the way, let's make our solution. I use half distilled water and half vegetable glycerin. I will link that from my Amazon store below, and I shake it up really, really well. Now let's add a little bit of mica powder. I will also link this mica powder below. You only need a little bit to tint the solution. After you did that, go ahead and shake it up again. Now the fun part, we're gonna fill our snow globe. I have a little secret. I fill my solution about 3/4 of the way. And I'm going to tell you why. Because if you just go ahead and fill it up the whole way right now, chances are your glitter is going to clump. Do you see the top there, how all that glitter needs broken apart? So I shake it vigorously until that all has been broken up, and then I can continue to fill my tumbler. So now I'm filling it up to the tippy top. I do leave a little air bubble. I like the air bubble. I feel like it helps it all move better, so personal preference there. And this one actually came with a little plug, which I was really excited about, so I'm going to stick that in there. If you don't have the plugs, go back to some of my previous snow globe videos because I show you exactly how to plug that hole. But it was really nice that this came in my tumbler. Now we're going to put a layer of UV resin over that just to make sure it is sealed in really well, and we're going to let that cure for 2 minutes under our UV light. This UV resin is from Counterculture DIY as well as the UV light, and I really like this light. It works really well. So we're going to use the elements from the Gracefully Created collab box that drops here in a couple days. So you would get a decal, the element sheet, as well as a pattern vinyl. So for the snow globe, we are just spreading the elements all over the cup. There's not a right or wrong way to do it. I'm just kind of making sure that they're all spread pretty evenly. These decals do have a white backing on them, so they show up really, really well, even though this glitter is very dark. So that's what I love about these element sheets from Gracefully Created. If you have any air bubbles in your decals, go ahead and make sure you pop those so that they don't show up later after we epoxy the whole thing, okay? Let's get started on our 3D topper. So this is a gold shimmery Sculpey oven baked clay. I ended up mixing this with another tan color I had because I didn't have enough of this one color to make 2 graham crackers. So I figured if I mix them both together, then I'll still get somewhere near that color, and I'll still have that shimmer in the clay that originally came with it. This process probably took about 5 minutes to work in my hands to get it fully mixed, but as you can see, we did it. So we are going to put this in the mold. I had this mold off of Amazon, and I wasn't confident that I could sculpt this and still get all of that amazing detail that you'll see here in a second. So we decided to use the mold, and I'll be able to link that below for you guys. I'm just working this and trying to get it flat in my mold. I couldn't find my acrylic rolling pin that I typically would use, so I'm literally just slamming it with my hand, and it worked out really well, honestly. You got to work with what you have sometimes. Flip that over and wait till you see this. That looks like a real graham cracker. Like, I love it. And you're going to want to make 2 of those. Now it's time for the marshmallow. I think my best advice for this part is don't overthink it. Like, a marshmallow after it's melted on a s'more doesn't have an exact shape. So don't stress out about it. work the clay in your hand so it's nice and soft and easy to work with. As you can see, that's what I'm doing here. And then we're going to roll it into a ball and smush it with our hand. You know, there's not really a lot that goes into it when you're making the s'more. I was a little self-conscious about my marshmallow until I put the whole thing together, and I was like, oh, that actually looks perfect. So don't stress out too much about it. Now, before we bake this, we have to make a part for the straw to go through, okay? So we're going to grab our bamboo lid, and we're going to lay our first graham cracker on it, okay? And I'm using the end of a paintbrush because I had a nice rounded edge, and I am indenting that hole, and then I'm making it a little bigger. And that is where the straw is going to go through. So this part is really important. It started to kind of indent on the bottom, so I'm just trimming that with my X-Acto knife. I'm not worried about how the bottom of this graham cracker looks because you're not going to see it. You know, it's going to be connected to the cup, so I'm not stressing out too much about it. And then you're going to want to do that to your marshmallow and your other graham cracker as well. There are tools for this as well, but I don't know where anything is in this office of mine, okay? So I'm kind of lining them up, and I'm making sure that they're still laying flat, and if I need to make the hole a little bigger or not. So that right there was perfect. And now we have to do our last graham cracker. Don't worry about the chocolate right now. We're actually going to do that with epoxy here in a couple minutes. We're not doing that part with clay. So after that's done, you're going to bake these in your oven per the instructions on your Sculpey packaging. I did 275 degrees Fahrenheit for about 30 minutes, but you know, everyone's oven is different, so it's really going to depend on your oven and if it runs hot, runs cold. So just use your best judgment there. All right, after it's out of the oven, you're going to want to let it cool down, and we are actually going to start by gluing our marshmallow to one of the graham crackers. This is liquid fusion. It should only take about 15 to 20 minutes to dry, depending on how thick of like a coat you put on it. But I am just using the glue to do that. Now, let's work on our drip. I'm using equal parts of part A and part B of the Counterculture DIY medium viscosity epoxy. Typically, I use facet epoxy for my drips, but I have to drip this cup, I have to drip the s'more, and I needed this to not cure as fast as facet does, so that's why I went with just a regular epoxy. I'm adding this mica powder in brown paint. If you're going to use paint to color your epoxy, just make sure you don't use a ton. I really like the colorants from Counterculture DIY, but I didn't have any browns, so I'm actually using my airbrush paint to do this, and honestly, it worked really well. But I'll be sure to link the Counterculture brown color below. Now, this is Nice and Thick by Counterculture DIY, and this is something that just helps thicken your epoxy instead of waiting for it to thicken naturally on its own. I would say this is about 30 milliliters of epoxy. It might be too much, but I would always rather have more than not have enough. And I would say about 2 tablespoons total of the Nice and Thick. As you can see, the epoxy is getting really thick right now, but that is exactly what we want because we don't want this to drip the whole way down our cup. We like short, thick drips here. So let's do it. I am being very careful not to make a mess on the rim of my snow globe, but I start by taking my popsicle stick and apply it to the whole rim of the snow globe, and I kind of let it drip down itself. I will force some drips if needed, but I like to just first make sure that the rim of my cup is completely covered before I start forcing those drips. Long, awkward pause. Those things are my favorite. I don't know how to get the music to play in the background when I'm not talking. So you guys just kind of have to deal with my hot mess if you want to learn, okay? Here you'll see me kind of forcing those drips. I'm taking my popsicle stick and I'm just pushing those drips down a little bit. And as you can see, this isn't running really far down our cup. It's because we thickened it a bunch. So it's going to drip down very, very little, and it's going to hold that initial shape. The thicker you make your drip, the less movement. The thinner you make your drip, that's going to drip the whole way down your cup. Now, let's also add this same epoxy to our marshmallow. don't glob this. If you put too much and it starts going over the edges, it's going to make a big mess. So I'm taking my time. I'm covering the whole top of my marshmallow. And then I kind of take that popsicle stick and I make my own drips. And I'm just being very careful around my edges not to glob it, because I really want it to look like a real s'more. You know, I don't want this dripping all the way down onto my graham cracker and stuff, so I'm just being very careful. I literally love this so much, just so you guys know. If I would have used facet epoxy for this, I may not have had time to do the cup, the s'more, and the top of the bamboo lid. So that was kind of my reasoning there. Since I had extra of that brown epoxy, I decided to go ahead and cover my bamboo lid so it kind of matched the whole vibe of the cup. And this is also great because I can stick that s'more on there and it'll dry just like that. Ignore that part. I put the wrong s'more on the lid. I really meant to put the s'more, the graham cracker with the marshmallow glued onto it already. I am a hot mess, just so you guys know. All right, so I'm lining that up, making sure the hole aligns with the hole on the lid. And now we can also put our last graham cracker on top. And since this was all epoxy, we're going to let that dry and cure just like that. Okay, all right, after your s'more drip and your snow globe drip have fully cured, now let's add our last layer of epoxy. So I'm also using the Counterculture medium viscosity for this, part A and part B equal parts, and I am putting this all over my snow globe. These decals should be sealed in with epoxy. Honestly, I guess it's a personal preference. I do believe that this cup would be fine without everything being sealed in, but just in case I want to sell this to a customer, I want to make sure I'm giving them the best quality, so I am sealing all of these decals in with one coat of epoxy, and that should be enough right there. Making sure to get the drip and the rim really well, and then we're also going to have to epoxy the s'more as well. You know, that clay has to be sealed in somehow, so we're going to use epoxy. My only advice here is don't use a ton. Take a small paintbrush or your finger, very light coat all over the entire s'more. You don't want this dripping down into your lid and stuff. So if you do just a really thin coat, that will be good. You're going to let this cure, and then that's it. You're good to go. Thank you guys so much for watching.